My name is Father Michael Sullivan. I'm 75 years old, and I've spent 50 years in this confessional booth. In all that time, I've maintained my faith in humanity's capacity for redemption. I've heard terrible things, unforgivable things, but I've always believed that somewhere inside every person, there's a spark of decency, of conscience. 2 months ago, a woman came to this booth and shattered that belief. Her name was Jennifer. She was 41 years old, a mother of 3, a respected nurse, and what she confessed to me wasn't just cruel, it was calculated cruelty toward a dying woman who had done nothing but love her, her husband's mother, her mother-in-law, a woman with terminal cancer who had weeks to live. And Jennifer, in those final weeks, made a decision so heartless, so deliberately malicious that I had to step out of the confessional afterward. I went to the altar, I knelt, and I prayed. Not for Jennifer's soul, not yet. I prayed for my own faith, because it was shaken. Jennifer sat down in this booth, and the first thing she said was,
"Father, I need to confess what I did to my mother-in-law in her final days, what I kept from her, what I stole from her when she had nothing left but time."
What she told me over the next hour made me realize something terrifying. Some people don't just lack empathy, they weaponize it. They understand exactly what will hurt someone most, and they do it anyway. Not in anger, not in passion, but deliberately, coldly, because they can.
Father, I need you to understand something before I start. I'm not a monster. I'm not evil. I'm a nurse. I've spent 18 years caring for people, saving lives, comforting the dying. I have 3 children. I volunteer at their school. I'm a good mother, a good wife. But my mother-in-law, Margaret, she made my life hell for 15 years. From the moment I married her son, David, she hated me. Nothing I did was good enough. Nothing. She criticized how I kept house, how I raised my children, how I dressed, how I cooked. She told David regularly that he'd married the wrong woman. She made comments about my weight after each pregnancy, about my job, about my family background. For 15 years, Father, every family gathering, every holiday, every interaction, small cuts, constant criticism, undermining me to my own children. And David, he never stood up to her, not once. He'd say, "That's just how she is. She means well. Just ignore it." But you can't ignore 15 years of someone making you feel worthless. 6 months ago, Margaret was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 months to live, they said. Maybe 6 with treatment. And Father, I know I should have felt compassion. I'm a nurse. I understand terminal illness. But all I felt was relief.
The way Jennifer said this, with no shame, no guilt about feeling relieved, just matter of fact. I asked her, "Jennifer, what happened? What did you do?"
Let me tell you what kind of person Margaret was, Father. When David and I got engaged, she didn't congratulate us. She pulled David aside at the engagement party and said, loud enough for me to hear, "Are you sure about this? She's not our kind of people." My family wasn't wealthy like theirs. I grew up working class. Put myself through nursing school. Margaret never let me forget it. At our wedding, she wore white, deliberately, to upstage me. When I was pregnant with our first child, she told me I was gaining too much weight. She said, "David's father and I were concerned you might not bounce back." After the baby was born, she criticized everything. The name we chose, too common. Breastfeeding in her presence, inappropriate. Going back to work after maternity leave. What kind of mother abandons her child? She bought my children gifts and told them, "This is from Grandma since your mother doesn't have taste." She compared me to David's ex-girlfriend constantly. Sarah was so elegant, so educated. Such a shame that didn't work out. For 15 years, Father. Every single interaction. And David just let it happen. He'd say, "She's my mother. She's old-fashioned. Just rise above it." But you can't rise above 15 years of psychological warfare. 2 years ago, Margaret told my 8-year-old daughter that Mommy's job as a nurse was blue collar, and she should aspire to be something more respectable. My daughter came home crying, asking if I had a bad job. That's when I realized Margaret wasn't just mean to me, she was poisoning my children against me. And David still did nothing. So when she was diagnosed with cancer, Father, I didn't feel sad. I felt like maybe, finally, there would be peace.
I understood Jennifer's resentment. Margaret sounded cruel, but there was something in Jennifer's voice, something cold. "Jennifer," I said, "what did you do to Margaret?"
After the diagnosis, Margaret declined rapidly. Within 2 months, she was bedridden, hospice care at home. David and I had to decide where would she spend her final weeks. She couldn't live alone. She needed constant care. David wanted her to move in with us, but our house was small. No extra room. We'd have to give up our master bedroom and move to the guest room, rearrange our entire lives for her final months. I'm a nurse, Father. I knew what was coming. The pain, the morphine, the decline, the mess, the smell. I told David we should hire professional hospice care or put her in a facility, but Margaret had one final wish. She wanted to die at home, David's childhood home, the house where David grew up, where she'd lived for 40 years. She wanted to die in her own bed, surrounded by her memories, her things, and she wanted David with her, wanted him to take leave from work to care for her in those final weeks. David agreed immediately. Of course he did. But Father, here's the thing. David and I both work. We have 3 children, a mortgage, responsibilities. If David took unpaid leave for 2 months to care for his mother, we'd be financially devastated. I told him, we can't afford this. I'm a nurse. Let me arrange professional care. But Margaret insisted. She wanted David, her son, no one else. And David said, "Mom is dying. I have to do this." So we made arrangements. I'd keep working to support the family. David would move into his mother's house to care for her full time. But there was one more thing Margaret wanted. She wanted to see her grandchildren, my children, every day if possible. She wanted them to visit after school, to sit with her, to say goodbye. She knew she was dying. She wanted to leave them with memories of her, good memories, before the end. And Father, that's when I made my decision.
"What decision?" I asked, though I was beginning to dread the answer.
I told David, the children shouldn't see her like this. It's too traumatic. They're too young. Our kids were 8, 10, and 12, old enough to understand death, old enough to say goodbye. But I convinced David it would be too hard on them. I said, let them remember Grandma healthy, not like this. David was conflicted, but he was also exhausted, grieving, overwhelmed. He trusted me. I'm a nurse. I understand death. I understand children. So he agreed. The children wouldn't visit daily, maybe once or twice before the end. But Father, that's not what I told Margaret. When I visited her, because I had to maintain appearances, she asked about the children. When will they come? I want to see them. I want to say goodbye properly. And I lied. I told her, they're so busy with school. You know how it is. But they'll come soon. Week after week, she asked, when are the children coming? Soon, Margaret. They have exams. They have activities. But soon. She was dying, Father. She had weeks, then days, and she kept asking for my children, for her grandchildren. She wanted to tell them she loved them, wanted to share memories, wanted to matter to them, and I kept them away. Deliberately, I let her die believing my children didn't care enough to visit, that they were too busy, too uninterested. In her final days, she asked David, why won't they come? Don't they love me? And David, who didn't know what I'd done, said, of course they love you, Mom. Kids are resilient. They'll be okay. But that wasn't what she needed to hear. She needed to see them, touch them, tell them goodbye. And I stole that from her. Not because the children would have been traumatized. They wouldn't have been. I'm a nurse. I know children can handle death with proper support. I kept them away because I wanted Margaret to die feeling abandoned by her grandchildren, the way she made me feel abandoned in my own marriage for 15 years. I wanted her to die feeling like she didn't matter to the people she loved most, because that's how she made me feel. And Father, it worked. 3 days before she died, Margaret told David, "I guess the children don't need to say goodbye. I thought I mattered more to them." She died believing her grandchildren didn't love her enough to visit, and I let her believe that.
I sat in silence for a long moment after Jennifer said this. My hands were shaking. I couldn't speak. This wasn't murder. It wasn't physical violence, but it was cruelty of a kind I'd rarely encountered. Finally, I asked, "Jennifer, do your children know? Does David know?"
The children don't know. They think I protected them. David doesn't know. He thinks I made a medical decision in their best interest. But Father, there's something else. After Margaret died, we were going through her things, and I found something. A letter. She'd written letters to each of her grandchildren to be opened after her death. Individual letters, telling them how much she loved them, sharing memories, giving them advice. And at the end of each letter, she wrote, "I'm sorry I didn't get to say goodbye properly. I hope you know I wanted to see you one more time. I hope you weren't kept away. I hope you just got too busy, and that's okay. Just know that Grandma loved you with all her heart." Father, she died thinking they chose not to come, and she forgave them for it in those letters. She died with grace toward children who didn't abandon her, while I was the one who kept them away. Those letters destroyed me because Margaret, even in death, was kinder to my children than I was to her. She gave them grace they didn't need, while I gave her cruelty she didn't deserve, and I can never take it back. I read those letters after the funeral. In private, I gave them to my children, watched them read Grandma's words, watched them cry because they wished they'd seen her more, and I said nothing. David keeps one of his mother's belongings in our bedroom. A photograph, Margaret holding our oldest daughter as a baby, both of them smiling. He looks at it every night before bed, and sometimes he says, "I wish Mom had gotten more time with the kids at the end." And I say, "I know, me too, and I'm lying every single time."
"Jennifer," I said carefully, "why are you confessing this now? What do you want?"
Because, Father, I'm not sorry. That's what I need to confess. Everyone thinks I should feel guilty, and I tell myself I should, but Margaret made my life miserable for 15 years. She undermined me, criticized me, made me feel worthless. And when she was at her most vulnerable, when she needed something from me, I said no, not explicitly, but effectively. I took from her what mattered most, connection with her grandchildren in her final days. Was it cruel? Yes. Was it proportional to what she did to me? I don't know. But Father, I don't regret it. I feel satisfied. Margaret died without the closure she wanted, without the love she craved at the end, and for the first time in 15 years, I had power over her. I know I should want forgiveness. I know I should want to be absolved, but I don't. I came here because I needed to tell someone, to say it out loud, to admit that I'm the kind of person who can deny a dying woman her final wish and not feel guilty about it.
Jennifer stood up to leave after saying this. She didn't wait for absolution. She didn't ask for penance. She just left. And I sat in that confessional for an hour afterward. I've been a priest for 50 years. I've heard confessions that would horrify most people. But Jennifer's confession shook me differently because she wasn't seeking redemption. She was seeking validation, acknowledgement. She wanted someone to know what she'd done, to witness her cruelty, and she felt no remorse. I went to the altar afterward, and I prayed. I prayed for Margaret, who died believing she'd been abandoned. I prayed for Jennifer's children, who will never know what their mother did. I prayed for David, who will never know the truth. And I prayed for myself because I questioned, for the first time in decades, whether everyone deserves forgiveness. I'm sharing Jennifer's confession with you because I need you to understand something. Not all cruelty is obvious. Not all evil is dramatic. Sometimes the cruelest thing you can do is withhold, is deny, is take away. Margaret wanted one thing before she died: time with her grandchildren. And Jennifer, who had the power to give that, chose not to. Not because it would harm the children, but because it would hurt Margaret. That's calculated cruelty. That's choosing to inflict pain when you could choose mercy. Jennifer justified it by pointing to 15 years of mistreatment. And maybe Margaret was cruel. Maybe she was difficult. Maybe Jennifer's resentment was earned. But Father, there's a difference between protecting yourself from abuse and inflicting suffering on the dying. Margaret's cruelty was social, psychological, chronic. Jennifer's cruelty was existential. She denied a dying woman peace in her final days. Those aren't equivalent. If someone has hurt you, you don't owe them access to your life. But if you have the power to give someone peace at the end of their life, and you choose not to, that says something about who you are, not who they made you, who you chose to become. Jennifer is a nurse. She understands death. She knows what matters at the end, and she used that knowledge as a weapon. Those letters Margaret wrote, forgiving children who didn't abandon her, showing grace she didn't need to show. Margaret, who had been cruel in life, chose kindness in death, while Jennifer, who claimed the moral high ground, chose cruelty. I don't know if Jennifer will ever feel remorse. I don't know if she's capable. But I know her children will someday learn what their grandmother wanted in those final days. And they'll ask why they weren't allowed to give it to her. And Jennifer will have to decide, keep lying or tell the truth. This channel exists to share these confessions, these warnings. If this story disturbs you, good, it should. Subscribe. Turn on notifications. Because the cruelest people aren't always the obvious villains. Sometimes they're the ones who know exactly what you need most and choose not to give it to you. The clock is always ticking for all of us. What will you choose to do with the power you have over others?